So, the initiation of true awakening begins within, of course, with a pure desire and interest in actively yearning and working to build up your own mental and spiritual processors, generally by personally researching a healthy variety of esoteric texts. There are tons of resources out there to look into. You can even go to sacredtexts.com for a massive library. And there are also many people and dragons trying to guide others in their own way, if you are willing to look around. There is little hope of awakening for those who have not the drive to educate themselves, for without the basics, one will only ever be able to stare blankly at the most brilliant things, for they are yet a fool like the vast majority of people. And that is an example of denigrating and ostracizing people, which one obviously shouldn't do because that makes one a divisive nincompoop. And it ought to be our aim to unify with one another towards a co-creative and benevolent future based on the binding principle of love instead of allowing petty nonsense to incite division within us, like I just did as an example. Because there is no time for petty bitterness when there are active spiritual forces of depravity and evil working against common decency and morality. Because they're basically giant, angsty, tantrum-throwing, genius, ancient, perma-toddler, alien ghost demons, and their existence is a real, scientifically factual component of reality. Also, humans are their food source. And the more wicked and pathetic the humans are, the more they get to eat. So that's a big part of why most human societies are full of sick, twisted bullshit, because the unquestioned and instinct-driven, selfish human mind just plays along with whatever wickedness comes its way. Also, a lot of you have been recycled and reincarnated like a million times as demon food on this planet, so your entire millennia-long existences have been the most horrific nightmares the universe has ever known, which often makes spiritual awakening even more challenging because that is truly a lot of trauma to process, and it's easier to live in denial. Reincarnation is also a scientific fact about reality, but the details on that are only given to those who are willing to look for them, but that's just the nature of knowledge in general. Also, by the way, a very good first step towards not being eaten by demons is to stop eating the animals, because if you are vicariously consenting to creating horrific nightmare lives for living creatures, just so that you can eat them, you are consenting for your life to be eaten by hungry nightmare demons, who are literally farming you in more or less the exact same way. That's just how spiritual physics works. You have to have empathy to deserve it. And this might sound like, wow, God must be the bad guy if he set things up like this, but most of this is all a bastardization of the original intent of creation because Satan's fuckboy squad really threw things out of whack. Oh yeah, and God is a scientific fact as well, but it isn't the anthropomorphized big daddy that many envision. It's more like a conscious unifying mathematical psychic field of love and power which brought forth order from chaos and set a very large number of balls rolling way back in the day. Yet, God has limitations. He's not just going to uncreate all of the souls which have dedicated themselves to evil. Anyways, rumor has it that God's influence on this planet is much less than Satan's influence on it, because this is basically hell. Anyways, there's some major efforts to fix the large amounts of very twisted problems which are going on this planet right now, and every soul who is willing to work to help out is valuable, because the future is still ambiguous, and there are a lot of bad guys around if you haven't noticed. And most of your edgy little enemies you don't like aren't the main bad guys. The bad guys tend to be extremely rich, and they kidnap and traffic your children. And I hate to say, but they actually cannibalize them as well. These beings, they look human, but they have sacrificed their humanity. They can only now revel in profanity and sickness. That's another major component of actual spiritual physics, is that we can share our bodies with multiple independent souls. We can invite the legions of the damned or the hosts of heaven within ourselves. The former are more eager to hang out for long periods of time, and the latter require a bit more effort to get hold of. Anyways, everything I've said is literally just how things actually are, which of course implies that society has been built almost entirely on superficial bullshit. So pervasively integrated are lies into our culture that common instinct and impulse-based folks, when confronted with the true spiritual potential of things, will often violently reject words and even block out their own experiences. Anyways, timer's counting down and I don't want things to get overheated, so that's the basic outline of awakening to reality. Welcome to the holy war for your own soul on the bloodiest battlefield of consciousness. This solar system is the strangest one in all of creation.